Do you want to bust your sales quota? Do you want to join the ranks of top 1% sellers? The Top 1% Sellers podcast gives you the insights and the tools to help you achieve your sales greatness. The podcast features sales and services professionals, leaders, and experts to give you the edge you're looking for. Here's your host, Ash Sadiq.
Welcome to the Top 1% Sellers podcast. My name is Ash Sadiq, and I wanted to share with you, as well as many people who are following us up on LinkedIn as well as Facebook, sort of the genesis of the Top 1% Sellers Factory. And then I'll talk with you about, what are some of the elements that you could leverage, whether as an individual sales professional or someone who's leading a sales team. So let's get started. The Top 1% Sellers Factory was started based on my experience working with top sales professionals at Cisco primarily, and also at Oracle and a number of other high-tech companies that I had the pleasure of interacting with the sales teams, the sales leaders, as well as with some top sales professionals across these companies. And the opportunity that I had was I really had the opportunity to work with top 200 account managers at Cisco in particular, at least in the most recent history. And these account managers were basically managing accounts that brought in 80% of Cisco's revenue. So the mission that I have for the Top 1% Sellers Factory is to really help a lot of people who are in the top 20% in the sales force to join the ranks of the top 1% sellers, because I believe people who are already bringing in millions of dollars, if you were to shift their performance even by 1 percentage point, it will make a big difference in their own economy, in their own earnings, as well as, of course, in the revenue and the wallet share that they can achieve for their companies. So that's really the mission behind the Top 1% Sellers Factory. Let's take a look at a bit more of detail. So based on my experience at Cisco, what I've really been amazed by the fact that the biggest factor that really influenced behavior was the mindset of a sales professional. And I've seen that happen again, particularly on very large accounts, where sometimes a sales professional will actually create in their own mindset, they will create their own ceiling for the amount of sales and the amount of revenue that they can achieve in any particular account. So their own mindset, their own limiting belief, their own ceiling that they have created for themselves, essentially educated how they functioned on a daily basis. And if you were to sort of work with them and change that mindset and change that ceiling, all of a sudden there is a much better vision for that account and the kind of opportunity that can be created for the customer, as well as for the solutions that this sales professional is bringing to the table. So this is really where the story starts, with me noticing that the one thing that made a huge difference in performance was if you really address the limiting beliefs and make sure that everyone who's working is really adopting a winner's mindset. And then the second piece here was, as I just mentioned, really seeing this happening at Oracle and at Cisco. And when you're driving 80% of the revenue, then you might as well focus on how we can make sure that 20% of performers continue to perform at the best level they have. And then the question would be, when we work with our clients and we work with sales professionals or sales teams, we try to really build a multiplier value effect for them. We start by looking at the winner's mindset and how we can make sure that that's what everybody is adopting. And then we take a look at how can they really develop a vision for their accounts that is really a funnel vision, in the sense that they can take a look at the industry as a whole, they look at the industry trends, they build business strategic acumen in that industry, and become the trusted advisor for their customers, so that they are actually able to build a much bigger opportunity with that particular customer based on that position. And then they start taking, focused forward action. How can we then develop a campaign on the account, a campaign with the account team, a campaign with the partner organization, communication with the customer organization so that we have, what it's going to take to really help us develop the conditions for success for really ending up and creating a lot of value for that customer, helping them achieve the kind of outcomes that they are looking for, and then end up really creating a lot of customer success on the back end. So that's essentially the journey that we would work with our clients on if we were consulting with them on how they can build a very sustained system of sales enablement, which includes really getting clear on their messaging, their value proposition, their story, and then also get very clear on how we can develop their skill set based on where they are today, and how can we sustain that performance through coaching and enabling the management team to be the type of coaches that are needed to sustain such an environment. Of course, the nice value add that you get out of that is the fact that you start really getting a lot of repeat business, you start getting a lot of new business because of the trusted advisor status that you've achieved with your clients. So one of the sweetest things that I think have happened was when I basically looked at a lot of the sales performance and the data around how can you really make a shift in that performance and how can you sustain it. And then coupled with that, I looked at a lot of other sources of knowledge, a lot of other expertise that I brought to bear on what I ended up creating, which is basically the top 1% sellers blueprint, which is a benchmark of top 1% sellers behavior. If I were to say to somebody, I now have a benchmark for you in order for you to develop and become a top 1% seller, that benchmark really unpacks for that sales professional what the winner's mindset is, which really has to do with the thought process. It will also unpack for them, what are the high impact skill sets, which is the no piece. And then the third piece, how can we actually do all of those things and bring them to fruition in the behaviors that make the 99% difference for top 1% sellers, right? Because you really want to think about what are the things that are going to make a big difference. And then as a sales professional, you want to do more of those and less of any other behaviors that may not necessarily be going to drive the kind of performance that you're looking for. Then we get to the next point here of the fact that I've also looked at a lot of the research coming out of the Strategic Account Management Association, and as we'll see from the next slide here, I've also looked at a lot of the content coming out from people like Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Jay Abraham, and of course, John Chambers, from the standpoint of how much he has been focusing on the whole concept of delivering customer outcomes and success. Someone like Jim Rohn talks a lot about how you can ensure you have mastery by really managing your own state, managing your own behavior. Jay Abraham is a very well-known sales and marketing expert that is really focused more on how you can identify a number of revenue multipliers in your business. Of course, many of us know Tony and how much he's really focusing on top performance, raising your standards, managing your state. And then Les Brown, a fantastic motivational speaker. He talks a lot about relentless motivation and how you can continue to really believe that it is possible. So when you take a look at a lot of this information coming in and really helping me shape the top 1% sales blueprint, you'll see as we start to take a look at the competencies that I have identified, why these competencies have been chosen to really educate what we have put together there. And then in addition to the pictures and the names that you're seeing on the slide, I've also spoken with Jim Cathcart. I've looked at content from Zig Ziglar, of course, from Bob Bowman, who is the coach for Michael Phelps, and brought all of this knowledge into.
Do you want to bust your sales quota? Do you want to join the ranks of top 1% sellers? The Top 1% Sellers podcast gives you the insights and the tools to help you achieve your sales greatness. The podcast features sales and services professionals, leaders, and experts to give you the edge you're looking for. Here's your host, Ash Sadiq.
The self-mastery component, the value creation mastery component, and then finally the customer success mastery. And from a self-mastery standpoint, it really embodies a philosophy and an outlook on life as a whole. It really helps us to think about what kind of value we are bringing to the world. It helps us to think about value creation as the second mastery, and how it embodies a body of knowledge, skill sets that are really about tried and true value creation strategies for customers in different industries. And then lastly, the customer success mastery and how it embodies a relentless commitment to customer success and the achievement of customer business outcomes. Whatever promises you make in the sales process from beginning to end, that you know that the customer success mastery is going to be about how much you are going to be an advocate and an ambassador for that customer success, and achieving the outcomes that you promised will happen, and making sure that you stay along for the ride and make sure that those customer success and outcomes are achieved. So let's take a look now at the top 1% sellers blueprint itself. We'll take a look at the 12 competencies or pillars that underlie these three mastery areas. So in each one of those mastery areas, we are going to find a subset of competencies in each one of the masteries. So when we talk about self-mastery, we basically find that the underlying competencies that I have identified, really by looking at so much research and content out there, and specifically when we think about how we can help you to become a top 1% seller, we have then identified these 4 competency area as very, very critical to really help showcase how you are a masterful designer of your own destiny. And these competencies are mindset and state management, which is really more about how do you manage your thoughts and how do you manage your energy and how you're showing up at every interaction, whether that's an interaction that's one-on-one or in meetings, boardrooms, account team meetings, partner meetings, whatever it may be. If you're picking up the phone, how do you make sure that you have managed the thought process as well as your energy to come across very, very energetic and someone who is basically coming across as a leader? The second competency is the strategic business acumen, and this one is really more about understanding the industry that you're working within, that the customer that you're interacting with is operating within, understanding the trends, the challenges, the opportunities, and what are the key insights that when you bring into the table, you're bringing to that customer something they don't already know. And I think that's what a top 1% seller will usually do. He or she would be so steeped in their industry that they actually know the customer's business in such a level of detail that you won't even be able to identify them from the rest of the customer organization, because they know so well how that customer organization operates. They know their industry, and they can speak with a lot of confidence and a lot of credibility and expertise on that industry. The third competency, sales skills and personality, is more about how we can keep track of everything we're doing, managing the account, the account management process, capturing information about the account, using software tools such as Salesforce and other sales management tools to keep track of the opportunities, where we are, where the opportunities, how our forecasting is happening, and how do we continue to manage that process, and make sure that as a person, you are managing yourself in this particular efficiency step that's going to help you achieve a lot of effectiveness when you have, all your sales data in one place, when everybody is updating everybody else about where the deal is going, and the rest of the detail that really happens when we manage the sales back office operation very effectively. The leadership communications competency is about how you, as the account manager, as the top 1% seller, exhibit leadership qualities, exhibit leadership communications qualities, and again, can demonstrate these qualities by really kind of stacking up the mindset and state management competency, the strategic business acumen. You understand everything about the account, which is the sales skills and personality competency. And then lastly, the leadership communications piece, which helps you communicate across the account. Then we take a look at the mastery creation, the mastery number 2, the value creation competency, and or mastery itself, and the competencies underneath it. We basically see relationship acumen, user experiences savvy, solution ecosystem savvy, and then virtual team savvy. And I really thought about, again, the changes that are happening, especially in high tech, and how everybody's moving into an X as a service model, and how that really changes the whole sales relationship. We're no longer selling a product, and once we deliver it, we're done, or we hand it over to whoever is implementing it. But now it's much more focused on customer success, and it's a long-term relationship, because now you're a whole lot more interested in the renewals and the recurring revenue that this customer organization will give you, which essentially means that your compensation model has changed from making a commission on a sale that happens once, and it is sort of a transaction-based business, into a more relationship, long-term recurring revenue business, where you want to stay connected so that you're able to renew the service and you renew the contract and continue to be embedded in that organization. So when we look at relationship acumen, we're really looking at your expertise in developing relationships in the customer organization, in the industry that the customer is in the organization that you are representing, and then also the partner organizations, and building an ecosystem around you of relationships that are going to help you across the different phases of the opportunity, whether you are thinking about nurturing a relationship with a client, or landing an opportunity and then taking this opportunity to through the phases of qualification and designing a solution, and then getting to closure. All of those stages require a very, very strong relationship acumen in that sales professional who wants to be, the embodiment of a top 1% seller. Then we come to the user experiences savvy, and that's really driven by the fact that now, again, you are very much involved in making sure that the solution that you are selling, or you're helping your client buy, will actually be very successful when it comes to the end user interactions with that system, that it's actually going to make a difference in how they're running their business. It's hopefully going to make the business process much easier. It's going to create an employee experience that's much better than today, a customer experience that's much, much, much better than today, and so on. So whoever is going to be that end user, you want to be conscious of what is that experience today versus how it's going to be in the future, and come across as someone that's very well versed in that experience. The solution ecosystem savvy is more about, once we have the strategic business acumen of the industry and we know where the industry is going, we are also very conscious of the solutions that we bring to the table that could be uh, a point solution that could have immediate effects, and then there could be other solutions that are more long-term focused, whereby the client organization may position itself for a much better strategic advantage over the long term, and when you are the kind of person who understands the solutions that exist, not just from the company that you represent, but also from the partners that work with you and other solutions providers in the industry, and you are able to speak very confidently and credibly about all of these solutions with the customer, so that you are the person that they bring to the meeting. They sit you down with them and you become a strategic business advisor with them, helping them understand and how to make sense of all these different solutions, and how they fit or not fit the customer's aspirations, existing aspirations and future aspirations as well. So this is an ongoing effort on your part to educate yourself on the different solutions and how they may or may not fit and be in the best interest of your customer organization. The virtual team savvy, I think a lot of us, a lot of you are doing this already, using your smartphones, using, virtual team team softwares, whether it's WebEx or Zoom, or Blue Jeans or any of these packages that allow you to conduct your business remotely across teams, again, partner, customer, and the company that you work within, and managing all the different meetings that you want to run, all the different teams that you're managing, and how can you leverage all of these tools and project management principles and engagement management principles to really ensure that all the pieces of the puzzle for the deal are moving forward very, very smoothly. And it's your ability in, regardless of those boundaries, regardless of how distant or close those team members are, you have the discipline and you have the tools and you have the presence in order to be able to run these meetings very effectively and manage these teams very effectively, even though you are not in the same physical location with them. So, and I think that's sort of one of those holy grails whereby as much as we get better at it, as much as we can actually achieve progress on the deals that we are working on. Then we look at the third mastery area, which is customer success. And I think this is, I'm sure many of you are very well aware of this and how big it has become. And what I have done, again, based on looking at a lot of the research and the changes that are happening, I identified competencies that are needed that are going to help you not just for the immediate benefit of a deal that you're working on, but with an eye on the long-term relationship and the benefits that you can achieve from that long-term relationship. So the very first competency within the customer success mastery is the business outcomes savvy. And we talked about this early on when we were talking about the mastery in general. And we basically said that we need to identify the business KPIs, the business metrics that the customer organization is really focused on really achieving a shift to the positive on them. And if your solution is going to impact financial metrics or is going to impact customer experience metrics or is going to impact marketing dollar ROI metrics, that it's much better for us to understand what those metrics are and have the strategic level of these metrics. They also can have the tactical and operational metrics, and then be the person that speaks with the clients and everyone who's touching that account about what those metrics are. And then you can work with other team members on how you can map them all the way to components of the solution that you are selling, so that it's a very clear path for you and for the customer and the partners you're working with to see how these solutions map all the way down to what those key KPIs are. Very critical, and I think that's where, when I was working at Oracle and we developed the solution value assessment, this was a big part in understanding what are the benefits the customer is going to achieve, and what are the KPIs behind them, and how can we then make a very clear mapping, business process mapping, and solution mapping to the achievement of those metrics. And then what's the time horizon? Because customers typically would like to see some quick wins, and they would like to see some impact on the revenue, some impact on the employee and customer experience, that you can immediately celebrate those quick wins and then work with the customer on achieving the rest of these KPIs. The execution savvy competency has become much, much more critical in an X as a service world, whereby, again, account managers today are having to become almost like a Deloitte consulting engagement manager, someone who, yes, I think in a lot of organizations you are partnering with some services delivery professionals. You still need to come across to the customer as what the execution phase and the implementation phase would look like, what the risks are going to be, how do we mitigate against those risks, what the costs are going to be like, and the fact that you will still be engaged to help this customer navigate to the other side of that phase. Because that's, I think, where a lot of technology and solution consumption really fails, is because the customer organization hits challenges in the execution phase and hits cost overruns and hits change management challenges and change leadership challenges. and other challenges as they try to implement these solutions, and given all the other pressures that are happening on any business. And I think you showing up as a leader in during these phases and helping them connect the dots with what's happening internally, the change management challenges, what's happening within your own organization, to help them implement and service and sustain the solution that they are investing in. This will be immensely valuable, and again will put you in that top 1% seller community of account managers. The customer engagement savvy, it definitely brings pieces from the other competency areas, but this is really where you develop the skills that really help everybody see that you're almost, again, like a Deloitte consulting partner. You have the presence and the ability to talk to the executives, the CEO, the CFO, the chief marketing officer, line of business executives, and you have done enough homework to understand what are the care abouts at each level of the organization. What are the care abouts? What are the challenges? What are the KPIs that each one of those individuals is mostly interested in? And how you will basically be their ambassador, working on the deal, working on the opportunity, looking at the solution, working with the implementation teams to really ensure that everything happens successfully, and that you're managing those conversations very effectively, up and down that chain with your own account team, with your own organization, the customer organization, the partner organization, and making sure that you are ahead of the curve when it comes to making sure that you are communicating a lot more than anybody else. You're making sure that you're over communicating is much better than under communicating, and that you're seeing the results of the communication coming across when people are acknowledging the work, when people are expressing satisfaction with the work, and they are coming and telling you how it has been a fantastic experience to work with you and continue working with you. The last competency here, again, really came out strong as we looked at the whole focus on customer success today, in a world where a lot of solutions the customers are buying are in the cloud, are not solutions that they have on their premises. And the fact that it is subscription based, it's highly dependent on renewals. And I basically understood that if you were not to continue working with your client and continue working with everybody on that account and continue evangelizing, right? Evangelizing the type of customer outcomes your solution has been able to achieve. If you stop evangelizing, if you think that now everything is going to be fine, they implemented the solution, you've got your commission, you've got your money, the renewals are going to happen automatically. If you make those assumptions, then highly likely someone else is going to come in and work on taking your stuff out and putting their stuff in, because out of mind, out of sight is out of mind, right? So this competency is about making a mental note, and then of course following up with action that you need on an ongoing basis to find opportunities to come back with the exciting news about the customer outcomes that have been achieved, and circulate and socialize this information at as many forums and platforms and conversations as possible, because that's how you're going to basically sustain the relationship and continue the courting and continue the nurturing of that relationship, so that you're not only able to renew existing business, but you're also able to bring in new solutions and continue to expand your footprint and your wallet share on that particular account. These 12 areas are the competencies behind the top 1% sellers blueprint. We can take that blueprint as the foundation for programs that we might build, whether it's training programs, enablement programs, or coaching and reinforcement programs within any sales organization that is aspiring to make sure that people who are working on the top 10, top 20, top 200 accounts are at the caliber and the level of top 1% performance levels, that they are the kind of people that once you make a shift in their performance, you will actually see a multiplier effect based on the fact that they are dealing with large accounts, large wallets, and as much as you develop their skills, as much as you're actually going to see amazing benefits in that direction. The other thing that we've done is we've taken these competencies, we've created the top 1% sellers blueprint assessment, which is also going to be available for you if you are a sales professional, whether you are in the 80 or the 20%. We're really focusing more on that 20%, but you can come and take the assessment, and it's going to tell you how far or how close you are from the top 1% sellers benchmark, and you will get a detailed report showing you where your strength areas are across these 12 areas of competencies. It's going to tell you where you have a development opportunity, and then what actions you need to take. It will tell you specifically the description of each competency. How did we come about the justification for picking up that competency? What are the sources of data that we used to build up that competency? And then you'll also see opportunities for development and where you can actually get that development. And that's exactly what I was talking about. I forgot that I have a slide here for it. And again, it's how you compare to the top 1% seller, how you measure your team's skills, how you identify competency development gaps, and then start essentially using the tool to help you do individual and 360 views for sales account teams. It's a fantastic tool, of course, because specifically if you want to focus on your top 20% and how to get them to the top 1%, then you don't have to waste a whole year to get to this point. You can essentially use the tools that we have built so much time building. One of the things that could happen as we use the assessment tool is we can also complement the assessment tool with interview protocols, where we conduct interviews with these account managers. We also talk to their own managers, and we also talk to some sales leaders. We can also, you might choose to have us speak with some of your key customer stakeholders, some partner organizations, and round out the feedback across these competencies about the top sellers that you have. You might have 50 of them, you might have 100 of them, and we work with you to make sure that in addition to doing the self-assessment, top 1% sellers blueprint assessment, we can also do focus groups, we can also do these interviews, and then bring all of this into an insights document that help educate us as we move forward with you to help you develop the right sales enablement program, and make sure that it's not just focused on where they could be needing development, but also where the strength areas are that you can actually tap into a whole lot more, and also look at how you can sustain it with coaching and some other conditions of success that we can help you create in the organization. So these are the phases that we'll typically go through if we work with you as from a consulting perspective. We'll go through that first assessment, which is the first phase, which is the assessment phase, and then the development phase of the solutions that we work with you on to come up with a sales performance development strategy. And then lastly, we work with you on how can you optimize it, how can you create conditions for success, how you reinforce everything that you're doing with the sales teams, the systems engineering teams, and so on. And in terms of the team that I have been able to put together, it's a lot of these folks are people that I have hired to work with me on Cisco engagements, and we have essentially kind of bucketed up the work that we do to start On the far left here, by looking at the sales organization excellence factors, we take a look at the team culture. We take a look at how we can facilitate some strategic conversations that happen among the sales leaders, and make sure that if they are re-energizing the team vision and the team spirit, we can help you with some strategic offsites, and we can help facilitate these meetings and make sure everybody walks away having developed an alignment story. They have an aligned vision for how they want to move the sales organization forward, and how the sales organization will also function within the larger company that they are a part of. The second piece of consulting that we can do is really more about the messaging aspect, understanding the specific solution sets that you are trying to go to market with, and then work with you on the value positioning of all of these solutions, and really make sure that we have a very clear message that whether the salesperson is going to be speaking on the phone about it, or in a presentation about it, or in a boardroom, it is going to be a very consistent value story across these platforms. And we work with you to make sure all your web, social media, again, one-on-one conversations, team conversations, are essentially tapping into that consistent value story and making use of it, so that you have that alignment throughout. And then lastly, of course, is the sales training and coaching reinforcement programs that we can work with you on, and help you focus on behaviors that will make a difference in the total wallet share, as well as uh, the strategic advisor position, trusted advisor position with your customers. When we do all these things with you, of course, as we've been speaking throughout this conversation, it's very important for us to understand the outcomes that we want to achieve with you. And definitely, we believe that when we do this work and we do it really well together, we're going to end up with an increased wallet share. We will have increased customer loyalty, and all of these things are metrics that can be measured. The next one is improving account team performance, larger pipeline of opportunities. You can definitely measure the number of opportunities in the pipeline. And then lastly, in how many use cases can we come back and say the account teams have been able to increase the number of competitor displacement. So these are very, very hard metrics that can be measured based on the work that we do with you. So this is really the end of this conversation that I'm having with you, and again, sort of the optimal outcome that's going to happen here is you're going to have higher professional achievement status as a sales professional. You're going to get recognition rewards. You'll be up on the stage at the Chairman's Club. You'll be up on the stage at the President's Club, and continue to get the recognition and the rewards that you deserve, because you've invested the time, you've invested so much into making sure that you achieve the top 1% seller status. And if you are a sales leader, if we work with you, given the different models that I described with you here, we can definitely help you create a culture of excellence, and a culture that's focused on what do the top 1% sellers do, what are the behaviors that make the 99% difference, and then we help you see the outcomes that we talked about throughout this conversation. If you are hearing this as part of the Top 1% Sellers podcast, I will make sure that in the show notes, you will be able to get access to the slide deck that I have been speaking to throughout this conversation. And also, I will make sure it's available on my profile on LinkedIn as well. My Twitter is at Ash Sadiq, and you'll also find me on LinkedIn as well. And again, watch the show notes. You'll find a lot of the links there for you. I look forward to seeing more and more of your success, and reach out with any questions. I'll be more than happy to give you more details. And also, look in the show notes for the Top 1% Sellers assessment itself, so you can actually measure your own performance and see the strength areas as well as areas of opportunity. I think you're going to like the tool very much. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Top 1% Sellers podcast. Give us your suggestions and guest recommendations by emailing us at ash@connectwithash.com. Thank you also for sharing this podcast with your colleagues and social media contacts. To connect with us on LinkedIn, please send a connect request to ash@connectwithash.com. See you at our next episode. Thanks for tuning in.